colleague in crime. We were figuring out the other day, we had 75 years experience between us. And part of that time we shared an office together. We currently are side by side offices. As Dr. Carson says, we have one ring.
Thank you very much, Dwight. As far as that one brain is concerned, sometimes it works pretty good and sometimes not so good. I have the honor and privilege this morning of not only introducing this recipient, but also this recipient happens to be my very best friend in the whole world. In 1969, some of you weren't even born then, two young men met as incoming freshman veterinary students. And it was kind of in the stars that a young man from Greyhawk, Kentucky, and a young man from 10 Mile, Tennessee would become fast friends pretty quick, and we did. By 1970, we were roommates and remained so until graduation in 1973. Even though we're 450 miles apart, our friendship has grown over the years, and we'll have to admit it's about as strong as a friendship could be, certainly with that distance between us. The interesting thing about this recipient is he's been in the same practice for 40 years in Central Kentucky. That's a long time. Not many of us have had the same job for 4 years, much less 40. He has been a mentor to countless pre-veterinary and veterinary students. Numerous preceptors have preceptored in his mixed animal practice. A large predominance of that practice is, in fact, food animal. He has led by example for those young people, and I think one of the greatest mentorships he accomplished was the fact that young pre-veterinary student, a lot of them have come through Auburn. One in particular, though, is his son, and they have the envious situation of being able to practice together, and that's pretty special in its own right. But so many young folks, they've got to see somebody do it. They've got to see somebody walk the walk. Now, this gentleman probably is not the most outspoken individual in the world. He's rather quiet, but he mentors by action. And I think, as Dr. Johnson said this morning, the M on the palm, the mentorship is pretty doggone special. And for all young people that have gone through this practice and gotten to see him and see him in action and visit with him, I think they're certainly better for it. Not only has he led a very good example as a veterinarian and professional, but also in his personal life. He is a very loving, devoted husband, father, and grandfather. And without any further ado, I give you the El Toro winner, Dr. Philip Hayes from Campbellsville, Kentucky.
I'm scared to death, so things don't work. When I started practice in 1973, we were in a mixed practice. We did a lot of work. We worked on lots of cattle, lots of herd work, stockyards, saw a cat occasionally. And then in 74, one of my heroes came by, Abe McClary. And he came with this idea. I think Henry Ford said once, if you tell yourself you can do something, or you tell yourself you can't do something, you're right. Well, Dave came to this attitude, we're going to do stuff, we've got this diploma, we're going to do stuff. So we started doing stuff, and before long we did heart surgery. We were doing I think it's this one aortic heart. And I was reading the book and doing anesthesia, and Dave was doing surgery. It lived. That was the amazing thing. So we were doing good, and then in 74, Dave went to a boarding practitioners meeting, And he came back and he said, we've got more stuff we can do. There's this thing called herd health, and we can do this. And so there was some dairies starting up in our area, and we sold them on the idea, and we were doing good, and they were doing good, and we were happy, and then Dave left. And then Dr. Jim Cook came, and he helped me for a while do that. And then Jim left, and then my colleague now, Dr. Andrew, came, and we were doing it good, and then things went to pieces. These dairies were growing, and they wanted to start knowing about mastitis and milking machines and nutrition and housing and vaccines, and it just was getting scary, so I started calling people. I called Dave. This was before caller ID, so they didn't have more available. This reason the heart thing worked, the call was just come off the fourth chamber. But anyway, and then, Dave would help me always through these things. And then I discovered Dr. Gates Rydell, would give you such good answers that you had to look up to see what the answer meant. It was education in itself. Then I would call Dr. Carson and Dr. Wolf. Dwight finally just wrote a book and sent it to me. So and I want you all need to know this. These two gentlemen here were Bacterial Genologist of the Year in 2 consecutive years. To me, that is a big plus for Auburn University. That should be promoted. There should be a sign somewhere. I mean, that's outstanding work, and they're right here, and you can ask them questions. I've called so many people at Auburn to ask for help. And now there's this big conflict about kill vaccines and modified live vaccines. That's not a problem for me. I call Dr. Gibbons. He says, this is the way it is. And he's not trying to sell you anything. Drug companies try to sell you stuff. They're trained to do it. He's not. He's saying, anybody except me can give a speech. You go to the North American Veterinary Conference, you go to Western, Eastern, I don't care where you go. It's the same people giving the same talk. When Dr. Gibbons gives his talk, you can tell at the question and answer part if this is good. When you ask these other folks questions there and they stand behind their podium and lean up on it and you wonder, why did you ask this? When Dr. Gibbons, when you ask him, he starts slowly like this. Coming to the front of the stage, so it's you and him. He's wanting you to know. He's going to help you. He's calling me back time and time again, helping these things that I don't have any idea what he's talking about. I think it's really about viruses and anybody in the world, and he will help you. I have to thank all the students who came through our clinic. They taught me a heck of a lot more than I taught them. They ask questions, and most of the time I don't know, but it's like the farmers I work with. They don't mind if you don't know as long as you find the answer. I've also learned that it can take 3 packages of Ethicon to spay an 8-pound cat. Sometimes that happens. I have to thank the people that I work with every day. Keith Andrew, who graduated in '77. He and I have been comrades and colleagues, and probably more importantly, friends for the past 37 years. Dr. Melinda Barber, who's been with us for 20 years, and can't say enough. And then there's my special veterinarian friend that has taught me more about diagnostics and working those IVEX machines and doing surgery than anybody, my son Philip. He and his lovely wife Lee have Jackson and Grant, half of the smartest grandchildren in the world. The other 2 are my daughters, who has taught me that one person with conviction can do about anything. I also have to thank one more person who's my rock in my life, and my girlfriend is, and she makes the best cornbread and pinto beans any